The first and last paragraphs of The Haunting of Hill House are identical. No live organism can continue for long to exist sanely under conditions of absolute reality. Most readers register this as atmosphere, Shirley Jackson setting a gothic mood, bookending her story with a flourish. But read it again after the ending. The repetition isn't a frame, it's a trap. The novel ends exactly where it began because Eleanor never left. She was always inside Hill House. Jackson just spent 200 pages showing us how. Before Eleanor Vance arrives at Hill House, Jackson gives us the quietest horror in the novel. Eleanor is 32. She has spent 11 years nursing her dying mother. 11 years of fetching glasses of water in the night, of being reduced to a pair of hands, in service to someone else's dying. When her mother finally dies, Eleanor inherits nothing. No apartment, no friends, no claim on any space in the world. She shares a room in her sister's apartment, sleeps behind a curtain. She doesn't own the car she drives to Hill House. She stole it. And when she fantasizes on the long drive up, her daydreams are strikingly modest. A little cottage with a garden, a cup of stars painted on a wall. She doesn't dream of love or adventure or escape. She dreams of rooms, of having somewhere to be. This is not backstory. This is the haunting. What makes Jackson's novel so quietly devastating is that Hill House doesn't terrorize Eleanor. It courts her. The cold spots, the pounding on the doors, the writing on the wall that spells her name. The other characters experience these as threats. Eleanor experiences them as a tension. When she feels a hand holding hers in the dark, she isn't frightened. She's comforted. When she realizes it wasn't Theodora's hand, the fear lasts only a moment. What lingers is the intimacy. Jackson understood something about loneliness that most horror writers miss entirely. A person who has been invisible long enough will mistake consumption for recognition. Hill House sees Eleanor, and after 32 years of being unseen, that is enough. The novel's other characters, Theodora, Luke, Dr. Montague, arrive at Hill House and remain themselves. They're unsettled, frightened at times, but they leave with their identities intact. Eleanor is the only one who dissolves, not because she's weaker or more susceptible to the supernatural. The house wants her because she was already a ghost. She haunted her mother's sick room for 11 years. She haunted her sister's spare room. She moved through the world, leaving no impression on it, no mark, no shape of herself pressed into anything. Hill House didn't make Eleanor disappear. It recognized that she had already disappeared, and it offered her the only thing she had ever wanted: permanence. This is where Jackson's genius cuts deepest. When Eleanor begins to unravel, talking to the house, walking the hallways barefoot at night, climbing the rusted iron staircase in the library, the other characters try to send her away. For her safety, they say. They're concerned, rational, kind. But Jackson frames their intervention with devastating precision. They aren't saving Eleanor. They're evicting her. Again. From the only place that ever wanted her. Think about what that means. The compassionate act, removing a vulnerable person from danger, is also a repetition of the cruelty that created the vulnerability in the first place. Jackson doesn't resolve this. She lets both truths exist in the same scene. Eleanor's final act, driving her car into the great tree at the gates, is almost always read as the house claiming her, pulling her in against her will. But reread her last conscious thought. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Why don't they stop me? That question isn't addressed to the house. It's addressed to the people who are sending her back into the world that never had a place for her. The horror of that moment isn't supernatural. It's the recognition that there was nowhere safe for Eleanor to go. Hill House would consume her. The world outside would erase her. Jackson refuses to pretend there was a third option. Jackson published this novel in 1959, and it has been filed under horror ever since. But strip away the Gothic machinery, the cold spots, the doors that breathe, the impossible geometry, and what remains is a story about a woman who was so profoundly alone that a building was the first thing to love her back. The identical opening and closing paragraphs aren't atmosphere. They're the sound of a door closing. Hill House goes on, as it always has. Silence lay steadily. And Eleanor is finally, irrevocably, home. That's the thing about this novel that stays with me. The haunting was never the house. The haunting was what the world does to a person it refuses to see. Shirley Jackson just gave it walls,